Are you or somebody you know a dismissive avoidant attachment style? Or could it be that somebody's actually struggling with something called avoidant personality disorder? These are two very starkly different things, and yet a lot of people conflate them and often get them confused. And so I want to share with you today, this is not a tool to diagnose somebody, of course, but this is information from the DSM-5, and we're going to talk about what avoidant personality disorder is. So that if you are sitting here wondering, first of all, if that might be something that you're struggling with, you might feel seen and heard in some of these contexts and can maybe go take the next steps to get a more official diagnosis or something like that if you think you may be struggling with this. But this can also be really helpful if this is somebody that you might have dated, because a lot of times people really take on, and interpret people's behaviors that they've dated, maybe their exes or people they were seeing, and really think, oh my gosh, was it me? Was I not good enough? When the more clarity we have about these types of things, we may actually be able to get really clear about, wait, maybe this person was struggling in ways that I didn't know or understand. And it can help you de-personalize the breakup or the ending of a relationship and really get that clarity and certainty you need to heal and to move ahead. So in today's video, I'm going to break down 7 major symptoms according to the DSM-5 for avoidant personality disorder. And then I'll just separate out the difference between just an attachment style, really just your attachment patterns and conditioning, versus avoidant personality disorder, which is a much bigger thing. So all this information comes from the DSM-5 and the American Psychological Association. And I think one of the first things you just want to note is that when it comes to avoidant personality disorder, these things have to be pervasive patterns, okay? And I really want to just start by saying the difference between like somebody having this trait or a moment of having this characteristic versus like an actual pervasive pattern, okay? So the pervasive patterns that start off first, just like the prerequisites before we even get into the 7 things, there have to be pervasive patterns of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, hypersensitivity to negative feedback or evaluation. And usually this begins in early adulthood. And these are the 7 major types of themes that you would see with somebody with avoidant personality disorder. And by the way, too, actually, before I go into the 7 things, just so you do know, avoidant personality disorder is classified under cluster C personality disorders, so sort of like the anxious and more fearful disorders. And it differs from social anxiety disorder because there is more of a pervasive pattern across a variety of contexts, not just social situations. And you may see somebody who has avoidant personality disorder also be very private about this. You may not even realize some of these things until you get to know them more personally because of how withdrawn they'll tend to be. Okay, so very first thing, somebody with avoidant personality disorder generally avoids occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact. And this is because of these massive fears of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. Okay, so I want to just start by piecing out the differences between that and dismissive avoidant attachment style. Okay, dismissive avoidance, yes, they may at times have a sensitivity to criticism for sure, right? They don't like being criticized. They don't like being in an argument, things like that. But you are not going to see them avoid activities just because of this fear of criticism. And individuals with avoidant personality disorder tend to struggle a lot more with like rejection, this idea that they're going to be rejected or disapproved of. And it's not just in relationships that they're sensitive to criticism like dismissive avoidants are. It can be anywhere, anybody, with strangers, with people they're walking by across the street. Like it can be all these different sorts of contexts. And they're going to even avoid like general activities as a whole. They may really struggle to go into work or the workplace. And it's really because they've put this idea of being rejected on this massive pedestal. Whereas dismissive avoidants, they're just kind of more private. They oftentimes, not always, can be more introverted. And they're not really avoiding things as a whole because that fear of rejection is so big. They're just sensitive, extra sensitive compared to other attachment styles to things like criticism. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, individuals with avoidant personality disorder generally are unwilling to get involved with people unless they are certain that they will be liked. Okay. And, I want to say here something that's really important is that in these types of contexts, okay, people with avoidant personality disorder, they are going to retreat dramatically. They're going to avoid people as a whole unless they feel like almost certainly this person already likes them, has voiced that they liked them, is extremely accepting and kind, and they just don't feel judged by this person. And a lot of times, somebody with avoidant personality disorder won't even like dip their toes in the water to start a relationship or a connection unless for whatever number of kind of chance-oriented reasons, somebody already expresses that they like them, and so they feel safe enough to kind of move towards them and lower their guard, okay? Dismissive avoidant attachment styles, on the other hand, they're basically individuals who, yes, they wanna be liked, but they don't care that much about what people think. They're not gonna be like, "Oh, I'm only gonna get involved unless I know I'm liked." They won't invest in people if they don't think that they're liked, right? They're gonna be like, "Well, I'm not gonna waste my time." But their relationship to how they get involved with people is more like, do I like the person? And they're often really focused, dismissive, avoidant attachment styles, on kind of like flaw finding somebody else, looking for all the things about that person that they may not like to see if it's worth their time and investment. And of course, they don't like to be criticized. So if they're generally going to stay away from more critical or judgmental people. But the individual with avoidant personality disorder is going to be a lot more like, are you going to like me? Are you going to accept me? Do you think I'm likable? Do you think I'm okay? And their relationship is more about pleasing somebody else, or being appreciated or liked by another person. And for dismissive avoidance, almost inverted that way. It's almost the opposite in many forms, because dismissive avoidants don't have this like huge fear of that to begin with. Okay. Number 3. Often individuals with avoidant personality disorder have a lot of restraint within personal relationships because of the fear of being shamed or humiliated or ridiculed. And so, what you're generally going to see here is that they may sometimes be shy or act a little bit distant or cold, which is where they often get mixed up with a dismissive avoidant. But their relationship to this is like, I just don't want to say too much and then say the wrong thing, or basically be seen in any way where people are going to recognize that, look, I am unlikable. I am worthy of rejection. So they will literally hold back and sometimes not say anything at all because they're so afraid of being shamed or humiliated. Now, dismissive avoidance, they may be sort of scanning their environment and a little slower to warm up and sometimes be a little standoffish at first. But a lot of times they're kind of vetting like, do I want to waste my time? Do I want to spend my time here? They're very like critical about other people at the beginning. And yes, that's kind of a deactivating strategy. That's a bit of a protective measure. And not all dismissive avoidants are like that, but they're generally like kind of looking outward and vetting other people. Whereas individuals with avoidant personality disorder are like kind of looking inward and super judging, shaming, rejecting themselves, and then thinking, oh my gosh, I can't say that. It's going to be the wrong thing. People are going to think I look silly. People are going to think that that's a stupid comment. And they're really harsh and critical. And honestly, at its root, they're extraordinarily harsh and critical of themselves and their own internal dialogue. Okay. You'll see dismissive avoidants can be tough on themselves too, but again, they're tough on others as well. Okay. Number 4, this is really interesting. This is a big separator. Individuals with avoidant personality disorder are very preoccupied with the idea of being criticized or rejected in social situations. Okay. So they're preoccupied with what people think of them. Dismissive avoidants are like out doing their own thing. They're kind of marching to the beat of their own drum. They're just less invested in thinking about what people think of them. Okay. And they're quick to just kind of cut things off. Like, oh, if that person doesn't like me or was critical, I don't really want to spend time with them. I don't need to be in that space. It didn't make me feel good. Whereas if somebody rejects somebody with avoidant personality disorder, it will often cause extreme and terrible rumination within them. Like it will be so hard for them to sit with that, to deal with that. And they may ruminate for days. It can like just sting them in a really, really painful way. Number 5, individuals with avoidant personality disorder are generally very much quiet in social situations, and they have these deep feelings of inadequacy. So, generally, what you'll see is they feel so inadequate that they'll just hold back as a whole. Okay. They'll avoid making new friends, building new connections, not just in social dynamics, but even in like one-to-one situations, not just group dynamics, but even and this will happen to the point a lot of the time where they struggle to hold down a job. They struggle to put themselves in a situation that could be rejected, like a job interview. And they can just experience a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety and distress around these types of things because they have this huge, deep belief that they're just so inadequate. And again, like, anybody who struggles with this, they're not inadequate, right? They've just been imprinted a lot of the time by painful things that have made them see themselves that way. I often talk in the personal development school about how we all have different core wounds. And our core wounds really are experiences that we've had that have imprinted the subconscious mind. So, I often use the analogy, if you go into the woods and you see a bear and you run away from that bear and you're safe, but the next day you have to go back into those same woods, what do? Well, you're like, where's the bear? Where's the bear? Is it over there? Is it coming out from behind the bushes? and you're reprojecting out the likelihood of seeing the bear because your mind has been imprinted by the bear. It was a threatening or scary situation, so we hold on to it. And then we see the woods through the lens of the bear, right? We see our lives and our interactions with the outside world through the lens of what could hurt us. And different attachment styles all have their own core wounds, right? These fears. But for the anxious attachment style, one of the big ones is being abandoned. For the dismissive avoidant, one of the big ones is being seen as defective or being emotionally unsafe in a situation. Also being trapped, right? Or engulfed. These are these big fears. So they see through the lens of those fears. Individuals with avoidant personality disorder, they have the way they see and interact with the world is run so deep and so intensely there that they will reproject these things out in such a massive way that they'll often never go back into the woods again, right? So they'll often avoid situations in their totality just to avoid these types of underlying dynamics, right? And I want to say something too. Not everybody with avoidant personality disorder is a dismissive avoidant attachment style, right? That's not always the case. And you can see some of the preoccupation with what people think, things like that very much stray from dismissive avoidant attachment style. Okay, so it's number 5. Now I'm going to get into the last 2 things. And these last 2 might be a little more surprising, but will also really help you see these crucial differences. I just wanted to pop in here and let you know we are doing a 7-day free trial to the All Access Membership Pass at PDS, which means you get access to literally everything inside of the school. And this includes the 4 live webinars I do with our students every single week. And on top of that, you get access to all of our different courses. We have over 55 different courses on relationships, communication, boundaries, emotional mastery, guilt and shame, learning your needs, so many different facets that are really important to master our lives and feel really good about our lives going forward. And last but not least, there's a daily community event. We have trained facilitators and coaches who are in there doing that work, showing up to support you on your journey every single day. Please join me on the other side. Come check it out. See if it's a fit for you. I'd love to see you there. Go ahead and sign up by clicking the link in the description box below. Now, number 6, avoidant personality disordered individuals generally feel like they are inferior to other people. They see themselves as socially inept or unappealing, and they're often so harsh and critical on themselves. They'll generally be like, why would anybody want to be my friend? Why would anybody want to spend time with me? Nobody should want to be around me. They have these really mean, harsh, sort of views of themselves. And they'll even say things to themselves like, oh, no, don't ask me that question. I don't want to answer. I'm the wrong person. They'll basically assume that everybody else is more socially skilled. And they have a lot of these cognitive distortions in the way they view themselves that are very painful. And again, usually these are because of these core wounds we were talking about earlier. Usually it's because they've been made to feel this way by somebody or many potentially multiple people in their own upbringing or childhood or early developmental experiences. And so they see themselves through this lens. And of course, that then dictates their behavior. Then because they're feeling so stressed, and they come across as slightly more stressed, right? And that's going to dictate and influence some of their reactions and how they connect with people. But again, by rewiring these core wounds and changing these things and being able to see yourself differently, you'll feel more confident. You'll be able to change a lot of these patterns as a result. So just anybody listening to this who actually hears themselves more in the avoidant personality disorder sort of space, just knowing that hey, healing is possible for you and it may be worthwhile to go get more of an official diagnosis on some of these things, dig into it and start doing some of the work to start moving the needle on this. And compared to dismissive avoidant attachment styles here, they may feel like, well, I don't love social things or that's not my vibe, but they're not going to see themselves as lesser than or inferior. They're not going to think that they can't answer questions or share things with people or have conversation or see themselves as completely socially inept. A lot of dismissive avoidants are strong socially, are comfortable socially even. And then number 7, you'll generally see that individuals with avoidant personality disorder really avoid new activities, personal risks. They're very reluctant to engage in new things as a whole because they just assume that they will be humiliated. They assume that they will find these things embarrassing. They'll make mistakes in front of everybody. And they have a lot of again, self-defeating internal dialogue, self-defeating thoughts about themselves. And so they'll miss life. They may feel like they're kind of this outsider looking in at life, like they just don't belong. And they will feel like, oh, it must be nice to be that person who can do those things. It must be so nice to make friends. And they basically pre-disqualify themselves from so many aspects of life. And that can be heartbreaking. That can be really sad. And I'm not sitting here saying that everybody should be this huge risk taker in life and everybody should go bungee jumping or skydiving. I don't do any of those things. I healthy, calculated risks, but I'm not going to be out bungee jumping or skydiving probably anytime soon. But so I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that like healthy risk, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, sharing interest in a friendship, sharing interest in a romantic relationship, trying something new, taking on a new skill or hobby. I mean, these are things where we get the blessings out of life a lot of the time. And if you always pre-disqualify yourself and you kind of rob yourself of being able to act on your curiosity or being able to achieve or advance at things or take those opportunities to really grow in those new directions, then that can really be heartbreaking. It can be really hard. And so dismissive avoidance, you're not really going to see them do that. They might be picky about certain things. They may be actually less risk taking than other attachment styles as a general rule because they really value that comfort and security. But it's not going to be the point where they put themselves on the outside and they just feel like they're on the outside looking in. So I hope this gives you a lot of really clear context. I hope for anybody who was leaning more into the avoidant personality disorder space, you take the time to really look into that further as necessary. And if this was somebody that you dated, I hope this gives you clarity and context so you realize, hey, maybe a lot of that rejection wasn't so much about you being rejected, but about them rejecting themselves, which then led them to keep you at arm's length because usually exactly how we treat ourselves will often inevitably play a huge role or have a huge impact on how we treat others. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to this channel if you do enjoy this. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our cool course giveaways or daily content here. And let me know any other questions you have down in the comments below, and I will make some content accordingly. Thanks for watching.